so much for giving me the opportunity to interview you and talk to you today. I'd just like to introduce myself. I am Nithya Navarathna. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am currently a sophomore at UMBC studying biology and computer science. And I'm also in the Meyerhoff Scholars Program, and I'm currently an LSAMP champion, which basically means I try to better the experience of students and work with the staff to give back to the LSAM community and connect the community more. Um, so first, I would like to start off with your background, kind of how, like, where you grew up and kind of how you got to where you are right now.
Hi, my name is Yvette Mozie-Ross. I'm Vice Provost for Enrollment Management and Planning at UMBC. I have been at UMBC for over 30 years in a professional capacity, but I started at UMBC as an undergraduate student in the mid 80s and loved it so much that I stayed here. So I like to say I'm born, bred UMBC, black and gold. I actually was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I did my elementary school work in D.C. and then moved out to the suburbs of D.C. or Prince George's County, they refer to it, where I attended middle and high school. So I graduated from Central High School in Prince George's County. I was very much interested in, at that time, pursuing a career in medicine. And so as I was doing my college search, UMBC in fact, I'll tell you, it was my AP biology teacher who said, so where are you going to school? What do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to major in biology. And he said, if you want to major in biology, you need to apply to UMBC. You need to go to UMBC. And so I had not even heard of UMBC before. So I said, what? And he said, UMBC, it's a great school. It's a great school. And so I did apply, and the rest was history. I fell in love with this place. I came here. Like I said, I initially pursued biology, but then shifted over to health administration and policy. And loved it so much, had such an amazing experience. I was very involved as an undergraduate student, had such amazing experience. I never left this place. So I was wrapping up my classwork, schoolwork, expecting that I'll be walking across the stage in just a matter of a couple weeks, and I'll need to go out into the real world. Don't know where I'm going, but got to do like everybody else, apply for jobs. And I get this call in my dorm room from a director in Res Life. And he said, what are you doing after you graduate? And I said, not sure. I don't have any plans. Why? What's going on? He says, well, we have an opening in our office up here in the main Res Life office. We have an opening and we think you should apply for it. And that is how I started my career in higher education. So that's how I got where I am now. There's a lot more story in between there, but that will stop for there for now.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Just to kind of elaborate on your experience at UMBC as an undergrad, what resources did you use to kind of support your academic success? Because you said you were in biology, which is not easy by any means. So just any resources that you used at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question you ask. And I will tell you, I probably fell victim to what I often see is students who are academically strong don't think they need help. And that was my story. I was my class salutatorian. I was in every AP and honors course in high school. I was the student who got the good grades. And so when I came to college, I did not understand that, college academics or studying in college is very different than studying in high school. And I thought that I could do this all on my own. And that's what I did in that first year. I called myself, I don't need help. I could do this on my own. I soon came to understand that is not the case. Everybody needs help. Everybody could benefit from support. And so after that first year, that struggle in that first year, I started to lean a little bit more on my classmates. I started to appreciate the whole concept of a study group. Like, we didn't do study groups in high school, so I didn't know what that meant. I heard people talking about it once I got to college, but I didn't really know what it meant. And I really thought it was for people who were struggling. They need help, the people who don't study and do. And I realized that that's not exactly, it's more than that. And so I started to leverage study groups and one-on-one tutoring. Funny story is, the way I met my husband is because I was struggling in a class, and I told a friend that I just don't understand this, and I just don't get it. It was a computer science class. I was a health administration and policy major, but
Mhm.
all health administration policy majors had to take a computer science class, just a 100 level class. But if you're not oriented in that way, that class, a 100 level computer science class, can be a struggle. And that's what happened. I was struggling in that class. And by that point, I had learned the importance of asking for help. So I told another friend that I just struggling, I need help. That friend said, "Oh, I know someone who's a computer science major. I'll introduce you to him. I'll take him, meet me over at the library at 7 o'clock." And he took me over there. He took me to the back where this guy was sitting at a table doing some work in the library. And he said, "Yvette, this is Willie. Willie, this is Vet. This is the girl I was telling you about that needs help." And I sat down at the table, and I didn't know this guy. And he said, "What?" He said, "So tell me, what problem are you working on?" And I slid the piece of paper over to him, and he literally solved the problem. Ran the program, it ran, and I fell in love with him. So there's that story.
Oh.
So I learned to kind of bring it full circle. I learned to ask for help. I learned the importance of tutoring. I love the importance of study groups. So peer help is incredibly important.
Mhm. That's awesome. So yeah, I think it seems like you kind of leaned on your classmates and tutoring and study groups in terms of kind of building a community at UMBC. Were there any other places that you found your community?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna tell you. I also worked when I was in as an undergraduate student. I worked for Res Life. I was a desk staffer. I was a desk manager. I was involved in the Resident Student Association. So I had a strong connection with folks in Res Life. To this day, I'm still very well connected with those folks that I met as a student. But they were the people I worked with and the people I worked for were a tremendous support system for me as an undergraduate student. And that really sort of that drives, motivates me in my work now as an administrator. I understand. My student workers are not just my student workers. They're not there just for me to get work done. I think I see myself as playing an instrumental role in their success. So I'm always checking in with them. How are classes going? How are things going? How are you balancing things? What are your concerns? What are your issues? So I know that that's what I benefited from as an undergraduate student. My supervisor and manager in Res Life, checking in on me and supporting me in that way. So I try to do the same thing for students now in my capacity now as an administrator.
That sounds amazing. That's great. I think it sounds like you were really involved at your experience in UMBC, involved in so many different kinds of activities. Just to kind of transition onto your experience with graduate school, you said right after undergrad, you worked back at Res Life again. How did the process from there to graduate school look like for you?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question you asked, and there's a very interesting story behind that. So that call that I got from my then supervisor, that call had came with some conditions. That offer, should I say, for that job came with some conditions. The condition was that I had to be in a graduate program because, technically speaking, that job that he was offering me was a grad assistantship, right? And so he said to me in that same phone conversation, he says, now, he says, after he asked me, "What do you want to do?" And there's a job opening up and I think you should apply for it. He says, "Now, one thing, you need to get admitted to a graduate program ASAP because that job requires you be a grad student." And I said, "Oh, whoa, well, I was planning to go to grad school, but I hadn't plan to go right away, and I haven't even applied anywhere. So anyway, somebody shared with me, they said, oh, well, if you're interested in health administration, UMGC, University of Maryland, at the time it was University of Maryland University College, but now it's University of Maryland Global Campus. They have a great health administration program. Why don't you try applying there? And that's what I did. I applied there and got admitted, and was able to pursue my master's degree while working for Res Life. In fact, they paid, it was an assistantship, so they paid for everything. So that was a great opportunity. During that time, I did shift my interests. I kind of made a decision at some point that I was going to commit myself to higher ed, not healthcare. And so I did shift my studies from a master's in health administration to a PhD in education policy and leadership. So that's what Peter's talking about. We're in the same college at College Park, at College of Education, and same program. So I did shift over to education policy and administration, and that's what I got my PhD in. And let's see if there's anything I can tell you about that story, that journey. I literally just, during my, so after I worked for 3 years for Res Life, I actually did leave the university. After I worked 3 years, finished up my master's work, I left the university for about 6 months because I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll go ahead and pursue my career and passion in healthcare. And the stars and the moons were just not aligned. That was not to be my path and journey. And somehow I found my way back at UMBC in another division, enrollment management, academic affairs and enrollment management. And I in my mind, I was just going to do this this was going to be just a short-term stop until I get back in healthcare. But I ended up absolutely loving what I was doing. And so after probably about 3 years working in enrollment management and admissions, I made a decision I was going to commit myself to higher ed. And so that's when I decided to apply for a doctoral program in higher ed administration. And so there it is. That's how I ended up with my PhD.
Wow, that's so inspiring, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of like backtrack a little bit, so you said you were a bio major at UMBC and then transferred over to health administration and policy. So when you graduated, was med school still kind of on your mind, or did that Res Life job change your views about that?
No, I definitely did not have med school. I had moved away from this idea of going to medical school and being a doctor. I think combination of things kind of moved me in that place. I did an internship in my freshman year at the University of Maryland hospital in the emergency room, and it was actually emergency pediatrics. And I had no idea. I had no idea what that kind of work entailed. But when I saw some of the cases coming in there, I was like, I don't think I really want to do this, right? And that coupled with the fact that I was in fact struggling in some of the science-based courses, I just made a decision. You know what? I can alter this plan. There's no reason I can. I met with an academic advisor at that time, and she said, she looked over my record. She saw what courses I was doing well in. She kind of talked to me about my interests, and she said, I have the perfect major for you. And I said, really? Like, because I was really kind of at a loss. I was feeling kind of at despair and, didn't know what to do. And she said, I got the perfect major for you. And the way she said it with such confidence, it made me feel like it wasn't a consolation prize. Like it wasn't, oh, well, since you didn't do well in the biology, this is a backup plan. She said it to me as if this was the thing that I should be doing. And she said, you ought to pursue health administration and policy. That's going to bring your two worlds together. The fact that you want to be in the healthcare industry, and the fact that you're a very strong manager, administrator, you are organized, you're a business person. She said, those two worlds will come together in this major. And when I tell you, I got up and walked out of that room, I was a brand new person. Like I just felt the weight of the world off my shoulders. I couldn't wait to get back to my room to call my mom and say, I got a major, So but that's, yeah. So I definitely moved away from that. I was very much fine moving away from the medical school thing, and really felt a good fit in home in the health administration and policy program. So I was excited. It was a renewed kind of, thing for me. So now that being said, I was definitely passionate about that healthcare, but I say to students, be open to where your journey might take you. Don't be so blindsided. Don't be so narrowly focused that you can't be open to the opportunities that are coming your way. And I say that to say, yes, did I have in my mind that I was going to go into healthcare field? Yes, but this opportunity, of working back at my alma mater, UMBC, presented itself to me. In fact, several people from UMBC called me when they saw the job position opening, and they said, there's a position in the admissions office. It's got your name written all over it. You really, really, really need to apply. And I was like, well, no, 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 that's not what I'm going into healthcare. But after the third person called me, I said, maybe this is a sign. Maybe somebody is trying to send me a message that this is where I'm supposed to be. So let me be open to it, and let me go in and do the interview. Midway in the interview, I was like, oh my God, I really love this. Like, I want this job. It's like I went into it not thinking I was going to want to do it, and I'm just appeasing the people who just keep calling me and telling me I should apply. Halfway in it, I was like, I want this job, right? So fortunately for me, it worked out well, and I did end up getting the job. So
Yeah, I think that's such valuable advice because especially I'm also on the pre-med path and there's so many requirements and there's so much to keep track of. You kind of become, I think, so closed off on just focusing on that. And I think these opportunities, it's you never know where it can lead.
you never know. And it's not that any of that would go to waste. I mean, you're still
Yes.
using all of that great education, because really, what I say to students is you're not looking for so much a degree in biology. You're looking for an education, a liberal education that can prepare you to be a critical thinker, analytical thinker, know how to ask questions. That's what at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for, because that's what's going to serve you well in any industry, right? That
Right.
transcends any and all industries. And if you can acquire those skill sets, your marketability is like infinite. You could go any direction you want to go. So why limit yourself to just this path? Yes, it's good to have goals and good to kind of set out for those goals, but the sky's the limit if you've got the right foundation and the right skill sets. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think personally for me, it's kind of hard to strike that balance in where being open to other opportunities while still kind of fulfilling like the things I need for pre-med because that uncertainty is kind of a little scary.
I
But
get it.
yeah.
I get it. Totally get it. It's good to have goals, and it's good to go for those goals, right? You just want to make sure it's not at the sake of missing other opportunities that are in your path, and they're presenting themselves and saying, "Hey, what about this? Possibly that." And you're like, "I don't see anything else." And next thing you know, you missed out on a great opportunity. So, yeah.
Right, absolutely. In terms of your education, again, I know you said you worked during undergrad and also your job after undergrad kind of paid for your master's program. So, in terms of funding your education, was it all kind of covered by that, or into what other resources did you turn to?
Yeah, I have to say I owe a debt of gratitude to UMBC, because I actually, when I came here as an undergrad, I came on a scholarship, pretty sizable scholarship. And when I graduated and entered into that master's program, because I was working, I was working as a grad assistant, it covered my tuition. Then, after I secured regular full time work in the enrollment management area and admissions, I had the benefit of tuition remission. And so when I applied and was admitted into the doctoral program at College Park, all of my tuition and fees were covered through my tuition remission program. So I've gotten 3 degrees and have paid very little for both of them, thanks in large part to UMBC. So that's my story. But tuition remission is a great way. I mean, it's not for everybody because, you have to know yourself. Some people need to be incredibly focused and, just, get in and get out. Like, I need to get this done and get out. Others may feel like they need, because of other reasons, they may need to work along the way. And if you're one of those people that need to work and maybe you could commit yourself to one class at a time, best thing you can do is find an employer that's willing to pay. Like, if you're working and paying out of pocket, that's not a good mix. But if you can work and your employer can contribute either in part or whole to your tuition, that can be a good combination, a good way of pursuing your education.
Just to transition onto your role at UMBC now, could you please tell us more about that and like what you do in your day-to-day job right now?
Yeah, so my current capacity is I am the vice provost for enrollment management and planning. My areas of responsibility include undergraduate admissions and orientation, financial aid and scholarships, academic and pre-professional advising, and the Office of the Registrar. So I like to say to students, I'm responsible for students from recruitment to graduation and lots of places in between, but I don't teach them. I leave that up to the other experts. So I do touch students in lots of ways all along their career. Students, get admitted, they need to be funded, and they need to have advising, and they need to, register for classes and check their degree progress. And then at the end of the day, we confer a degree on them. So I'm usually at some level with them along the entire life cycle, their entire life cycle. One of the things that I'm most proud about in my career is my role in establishing the financial literacy initiative here at UMBC called Financial Smarts. Back in 2011, a colleague and I were sitting around talking about how can we, and my colleague, he worked in business and finance, in finance and administration, I'm sorry. And he and I were, just talking about what things we're seeing, concerns we're having with regard to our students and their finances, and looking at what are the resources we have on campus that can support those students. And while there were some resources available, we certainly felt there was room to build and develop more programming, more educational tools for our students. And so that was where the Financial Smarts initiative was born. So it started in 2011. We brought together folks around the campus who had a vested interest in financial literacy and financial literacy education. It started with one online course, 6-module course that we built in Blackboard. That one online course, first of all, has grown, but we've added to that number of other initiatives and programs, including a coaching program, a credit checking program, a fully credited, full academic credit course. We worked with the financial economics department to onboard their new credit bearing course. So it really, the initiative and program has really grown beyond, to the point that I was literally co-chairing this with someone. We got to the point that person ended up leaving, going to another university. So I was kind of left by myself to kind of bear the rest of this. But it got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is growing, doing so well and growing so wide. I can't do this by myself. So we ended up hiring a full-time employee. So we now, for the first time in UMBC's history, have a full-time financial literacy specialist who's doing an amazing job. So it's something we're really excited about. It's good work. We're getting recognized around the state and around the region for the work that we're doing in this space. A lot of schools are just trying to get started. They're just trying to ramp up and get started. So they're looking to us to understand what we did, how did we sort of, pull together our resources and make it happen. So I'm really excited. I feel like the work we're doing is important. I always say if we want our students to realize the full benefit of their UMBC degree, we're going to have to make sure that they are positioned to make good decisions along the way, because it's those decisions they make along the way that will determine what the value added will be of their UMBC degree. You can get a degree, but if you're in debt by the time, if it's unmanageable debt, right? Everybody has some debt, but if it's unmanageable debt because you've made some poor decisions along the way, you're not going to realize the full benefit of your UMBC degree. So that's why I'm so vested in this work. So there you go.
What aspects of your role right now make you want to keep going in this position?
Wow, that is a great question. And I think the thing that sort of motivates me or drives me every day is seeing how the work I do and the work of others on this campus, a lot of people are responsible, how we take ordinary people and make extraordinary and, produce extraordinary beings, right? I love the fact that our students come from, in many cases, very humble backgrounds. I mean, just look at what just happened just recently with our mock trial, right? Group.
Yeah.
The fact that we beat out Yale, I mean, Yale is perhaps the most privileged students in this country. And the fact that we've got kids coming from, Patterson High School around the corner who came to UMBC, everyday students, and knowing that I play a small role in these students achieving these great accomplishments is just it just fills my cup every day. So, I take pride. When I saw that announcement, I'm like, yes, go UMBC, go Retrievers, So that drives me, that gets me up every day and gets me going. It's like we're doing some amazing stuff. We're game changers at
Yeah.
UMBC. So I love it. I mean, that's one story, but you can also look at the, you know, NCAA, the basketball team. That's yet another story. I mean, but we got so many of those stories, right?
Absolutely.
You can look at Kasmikia Corbett, who
Hmm.
contributed to the coronavirus vaccine, or led it, not contribute. She led the coronavirus vaccine. She comes from humble background. She comes from North Carolina, so that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, and I know for sure there are many people that want to be in my shoes. There are lots of people who would love to have my job. Love to have my job. I talk to colleagues at other campuses all the time. They're like, gosh, you're so fortunate. You're so lucky to work with great people in a great community, great leaders. Your students are amazing. So I'm a lucky person. So yeah.
Thank you. No, we're just as lucky to have you here.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind.
You did mention that you were involved in a lot of advising and mentorship through like many different roles, I guess, sub roles within your role as vice provost. How do you recommend students seek out that mentorship when they first come in, or even that kind of guidance as they decide to move on to post undergrad?
Yeah. So as far as mentoring and how do you seek out mentoring, I think the first thing I would say is I would remind students that no one person is going to meet all your needs. So you may need to have multiple mentors. You may need a mentor, in your personal life, a mentor in your academic life, a mentor in your workspace. So just keep in mind, no one person is going to meet all of those needs. So just be clear about that when you go into seeking mentors. The other thing that I would advise is that just ask. You won't get it. You won't get what you don't ask for, right? So you have to be courageous enough to ask. Um, if you see somebody who you just say, wow, that's somebody I would love to learn from, or I like I like what she has to say. I like how he approaches this, you know, you just got to ask, and yes, they're either going to say yes, it's one or two answers, yes or no, right? And if they say no, they say no, and you respect that and you move on. But you do want to, you do have to ask, first. The other thing I would say is that you want to do your research, around mentoring. Mentoring, um, that relationship, there's going to be, influences there, right? So, and that's the idea behind it, right? So you want to make sure you are aligning yourself with someone who has shared values. um, that's not to say that's not the same thing as they're going to tell you everything you want to hear, or they're only going to, have one perspective. It's just that you share the same core values, right? And I think that's important, because I think that, one, it makes for a healthier mentor relationship when you share the same core values, but also it allows you to sustain that relationship, because if you don't share the same core values, it's going to be painful showing up for that mentor relationship, because you're going to be like, I really don't like what he has to say about these things. This is not what I grew up understanding to be the truth and everything. So you want to do your research before you go into before you make that ask. You want to be pretty clear that this is somebody who shares your same core values. And then the other thing I would say about mentoring is you need to be clear that you can make that commitment, right? Because when you ask someone to be your mentor, they are going to expect you to show up. They're going to expect you to be responsive, and so you need to be clear that you can make that commitment, that time commitment, and that space commitment for that relationship. The worst thing you can do is ask an extremely busy person to serve as your mentor, and they make that time for you and you can barely show up. You're canceling those meetings, or when you show up, they're asking you, so did you get a chance to investigate what we talked about? And you go, no, really didn't have time. That's not a good use of their time. So I definitely say, make sure you can make that commitment, that time commitment for that relationship.
Thank you. That I think that's so valuable to just keep that in the back of the mind where while I'm seeking out mentors.
Absolutely.
On a similar note, is there any other advice you'd like to give for students navigating their UMBC journey?
Wow, let me see. Yes. I would say one of my greatest regrets, I don't have a whole lot of regrets, but I do have some. And one of my greatest regrets, when I reflect back on my undergraduate years, is that I did not venture enough out of my comfort zone, right? Kind of stayed with the same people, traveled, moved about, kind of did things that I was familiar with. And specifically, I'm referring to the fact that I did not take advantage of study abroad, right? You know, now part of that was my upbringing. We were very localized folks, so I never really had a lot of exposure to getting on a plane. And I mean, in fact, the first time I got on a plane was in my senior year, but that was because of some special thing that I got nominated for, and I did it, and I came home. I was terrified, but I did it, got on the plane and came back. So I didn't really have I didn't have a lot of experience with travel. And so there was not this comfort level. So when I got to college and I heard people talking about study abroad, in my mind, I said, oh no, that's not for people like me. That's for those rich folks, those rich kids. That's kind of how in my little 19 year old mind, that's how I explain that study abroad stuff is for people who, wealthier, to do people. And so, but I learned later on that that's not the case, that it is an opportunity that is available to a lot of people. And what the value added would have been, what I could have gained from that. I didn't gain until I was well into my 30s when I started to travel, when I could afford on my own to travel and I started doing it. I was like, oh my God, the world is an amazing place, right? And why didn't I take advantage of this, as an undergrad student? So my advice to people is to step out your comfort zone. I mean, college is the safe ground to do that. Like if you can't challenge yourself in college, man, that is the safest ground to try new things and explore. You got so much guidance. Like what I know now about, just using my study abroad example, what I know now about the study abroad office, I did not have any clue about how supportive they are and how they guide you. And they literally are there with you, maybe in a virtual space, but they are there checking in on you on a regular basis while you're in that experience. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that to be the case when I was a student. So I just stayed away from it. I was like, no, not for me, not for me. So anyway, I'm sure there are lots of other examples like that, whether it is participating in a club or organization, or doing undergraduate research, or taking on joining a sports, club, or, trying something new, like taking on a committee, leading a committee. What better place to try out your leadership skills than in college, right? If you aspire to be a leader, at some point in your life, in your workplace or in your community, you darn sure better use your college as that practice ground, right? Because you got people all around you that are going to give you that feedback and guidance. Your faculty advisor, your club organization advisor, your supervisor at work. Folks, we're here. We get that you are more than just a student worker or a student advisee. We're here to really shape and guide you in helping you achieve your ultimate goals. So I just say, step outside your comfort zone, give it a try.
Thank you. This has been so great to learn and so inspiring. All the advice, I will definitely keep that in mind as I go through my rest of my journey at UMBC.
Oh, great. You're welcome. I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. I love talking about my own personal experience. I love sharing guidance and insight, anything that I might have, that may be of value to students. I love sharing it. So thank you for the platform.
Yeah, definitely. So I also wanted to ask you, what's the nature of your interaction with the LSAMP community at UMBC and actually throughout Maryland, and how can students engage with you?
I always embrace an opportunity to connect with students with whatever program that they're in. So I make myself available, to students all the time. And so any LSAMP students who need guidance or even have concerns, if they are, having some challenges or concerns in their class or, outside the classroom, and they don't know who to go to, I'm a good go-to person I'm a good starting point. Let me say, I'm a good starting point. If I don't know the answer, I know somebody who knows the answer. So I can be a good starting place if you're dealing with any kind of challenges. But I also like to talk to students when they're doing well too. So I tell students, I'm always happy to help you sort through problems, but I also enjoy just sitting and hearing about wonderful things that are going on in your life. I had several of my students hit me up to tell me about their undergraduate research projects that are being featured this week. So I've been all over the undergraduate research portal and hitting up and putting comments in. So point is, I want you to come see me when things are going well, in addition to when you need some help. So there you go.
I just wanted to ask you one last question, certainly not the least. How do you manage your personal well-being and kind of that work-life balance, given that you are involved in so much and you have such a busy life? I know at our LSAM community, we have something called Wellness Wednesdays, where every Wednesday we get someone called Dr. Carolyn Babalola, who guides us through meditation and other like wellness practices. Is there something similar that you follow?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So I am big into exercising. I feel like exercising and fitness is really important to maintaining that balance. So for many years, I was a runner. So I did long runs, half marathons, and I mean, I'd be out at least 4 days out of the week running. I traded in my running shoes 2 years ago for a Peloton bike. So I am an avid Peloton cyclist. So I absolutely love my Peloton, and it has more than just cycling. It has all kinds of other activities and stuff. But my husband and I start our morning riding, doing a ride on the Peloton bike, and doing various exercises and stuff. So that is one way I maintain that balance is through my exercising. Also, eating healthy. There was a time when I could eat anything. I talk to people, ask me what's my favorite food. It's a bacon cheeseburger, right? And there was a time I could eat bacon cheeseburger. Here's the funny thing about it is, I've been at UMBC for a long time. So I could go in the commons and walk upstairs and just walk up to the food venue, and the people were like, bacon cheeseburger, get one ready. Like they knew what I wanted. Now, I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. They were obviously trying to be nice and kind to me, but it got to a point where they knew exactly what I wanted. But that years later, that did not serve me well. So even though bacon cheeseburgers is still my favorite, I only can do it once in a while, right? So healthy eating is definitely something that I've ventured into in my later years, both myself and my husband. And then the other thing I think is perspective. Perspective is so important. I think that you have the skills and ability to put things in perspective, and what I mean by that is we get so wrapped up in things that happen to us, right? Oh my God, I failed that exam. Oh my God, I disappointed her. I said the wrong thing and she's upset at me. Oh my God, I should have, would have, could have, that. And, somebody told me many years ago, in 5 years, will that even matter? Will anybody have remembered that you failed to do that? Would anybody remember that? Will you even remember that you failed that exam? And somebody told me that when I was in my 20s, and I've been using that mantra, all my life, when because things happen, right? Stuff happens that we kind of like, ugh, you know, maybe I didn't do so well when I was speaking publicly a week ago, and I stumbled on my words, and I did. And, I walk away, and yeah, in the moment, it feels like, God, I didn't get it quite perfect, right? But what I've learned is right after that moment happens, I need to ask my question. I need to ask myself, Yvette, in 5 years, will this even matter? Will the people who were in this virtual event, will they even remember that conversation? They might remember the spirit of your conversation, but will they remember that phrase that you jumbled over? Will they remember that wrong word that you used out of context? No, they won't. Pretty sure they won't. Well, then let it go and move on. Okay. And so that's the exercise that I do on a regular basis to help me maintain, minimize, keep my stress down, keep my worry down, and to be able to move forward in a productive manner. So that's what I do. Perspective.
Wow, yeah. I think Dr. Babalola also guides us through similar, like the way to organize your thoughts kind of. So she was also actually like a Meyerhoff and UMBC alum. So she kind of knows the stress that students go through and everything. It's amazing to kind of just sit there with your thoughts and just put things into perspective once in a while.
And the thing is, once you practice it and you do it enough, it gets easier. Like literally you do things that are like ridiculous and you can walk away, right away from it
Yeah.
and be like, hey girl, hey, oh, so what's next? You get better at it, right?
Right.
You don't find yourself getting so bogged down and stuck, and that's the worst thing, because I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna make mistakes in life.
Right.
It's not the first time you're gonna file something up, and it won't be the last time you file something up, right? So you gotta get in a position, you gotta train yourself to be able to move beyond it. Learn from it, take the quick lesson, articulate, tell yourself, what did I learn from this? Okay, got it, check, move on, because nobody's gonna remember it, but at least I take a good lesson away from it, okay? But move on. And the sooner you can learn that and be able to do that, it's a skill. As soon as you develop that skill, the better you'll be, the better you'll be.
Definitely. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I think we're almost at the end of time. This was so great to learn. I am definitely taking away a lot from this chat today. So inspiring. Thank you
Awesome.
once again for this opportunity.
Thank you. And you are an amazing interviewer.
Oh, thank you
You
so
are
much.
really good. Very poised and clear, really excellent. So thank you so very
Thank you.
much.
That means a lot. Thank you so much.
You made it very easy and very natural. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.